Good morning, everyone. Today, we're checking out another series that just so happens to be going on the same time with Popcross Studios with Starseed Psyche. Now, y'all are probably wondering, why am I doing this video instead of waiting for the next Demon Hunter? Simple. This series was requested personally on the channel, so I made a deal with the person. And this and Demon Hunter will be alternating series. It'd be Demon Hunter, then Starseed Psyche. And I'm a little behind, so now it's time to get started with Chapter 1. Alien tech killed me, and my spirit guide is a jock. Let's hop in and see how this goes. Welcome to Starseed Psyche.
I know I'd really tick off the average person by saying this out loud, but the best day of my life is probably the day the first Qserax bombs went off. Obviously, it was a tragic day for a lot of people and didn't feel that great for me at the time either, but it also started a shift that completely changed my life. I mean, I even technically lost my life that day, though only briefly. At 6 o'clock that night, I'd hopped
I'm sorry, what the heck do you mean briefly? How does someone Okay, never mind.
online in my dinky and stinky apartment to play video games with my friends Kentaro and Minoru. It was a regular ritual of ours at the time to hop on an MMORPG in the evening and spend the whole time complaining about work, life, dating, or more accurately, our lack of dating, and of course about anyone we could find online who was ever saying anything remotely positive about the Qsidians. Wow, okay, sending you guys a link. That QC hugging moron posted again. Kentaro sneered over the mics. I looked away from the game and down at my phone, waiting, and in that moment I remember a distinct feeling of dread. It wasn't exactly a voice, but if it had been, it would have been a quiet one, whispering, "Please don't, I'm so tired of being so angry." I had that feeling a lot back then and never listened to it. I opened the link as soon as I saw it, and a familiar wave of rage and disgust swelled over me.
And
It
here we
was some
go.
rich American hippie guy living out in Osaka under the online handle Q Saviors, who claimed he'd once been brought onto a Qsidian ship when he was a kid, long before the now world-famous race of aliens had become public knowledge. Every week he
Aliens?
conveniently had some new story about them and his brief time with them. He was always good for a double dose of anger for me because, for one, I was certain he was lying to people for attention and to sell merch and online courses, but also because he publicly praised the Qsidians, who I despised at the time. The green-skinned, hoof-footed alien race known as the Qsidians
Oh, and that's what he's drawing now. Okay, I was wondering, what do these things even look like? Now we're finding out.
had made their public debut about 3 years before that night. There had been talk and rumors and sightings of them in the years building up to that moment, but I'd thought at the time only weirdos actually believed in them. Then, they dropped ships down in New York, Cairo, Mumbai, Sydney, Shanghai, and not too far from me in Tokyo. They basically did a fancier version of the whole "we come in peace" thing, and said they wanted to help humanity technologically, agriculturally, and spiritually.
They pretty much just did a whole "Hello, Cleveland" kind of entrance. Love it.
They also claimed they'd been working with the world governments in secret for a while and had been discouraged by them from revealing themselves to the world. Eventually, they just went over world leaders' heads and did it anyway, thinking that the people needed to know they were there to help and to give us hope for the future of our world and society. Pretty quickly, the news all around the world started talking about how the aliens should not be trusted, to a point where only fringe communities were fans of them. At
Yep.
first, there wasn't
Happens all the
actually
time.
that much good reason to distrust them, but evidence soon started to appear. Different farms and weapons manufacturing sites around the world started mysteriously burning down, and it was quickly linked to the Qsidians. Bolstered by the news, popular opinion became that the Qsidians were sabotaging us so that we'd think we needed them and they could keep building more power over us. Throughout the whole thing, on the rare times when they were interviewed, they'd always promise in a very calm and friendly way that they were only here to help. But based on the way they were portrayed in the news, that seemed less and less likely. I didn't have any direct links to the Q-City.
Well, I mean, that's also one thing, though. Unless you actually see it happening firsthand or seeing it live, you can't really take what's happening as honest truth.
Back in those days, or at least I thought I didn't, but they and their supporters just happened to be one of the main targets of my constant outrage at life. On that night, that guy, Q Saviors, posted a video about how the Cusidians had taught him how to connect with his spirit guides, and he had his eyes closed and head up, shaking and talking nonsense as if he was speaking to some higher being. Minoru laughed spitefully through the mics. How are all
Oh
these
boy.
people so stupid and gullible? He was clearly in the comment section, and I clicked over to it as well, looking for anyone most fitting for me to do some digital raging at. It would usually make me feel ever so briefly better, or at least distract me from my boring job, my looks, my apartment, and the world I lived in.
Just a terrible
Although,
life, huh?
that night, I
Sorry.
wouldn't have time to get into a comment section rage match with anyone. A loud electronic pulse
Whoa.
suddenly rang out through my apartment. I thought for a second it may have come from the game, but then there was another, and I realized they were coming from outside. The lights started to flicker. I called through the mics. Whoa, are you guys hearing that? Kentaro started to say something, but then the mics cut out. Service on the game froze. The internet was down. I ran to the window and threw open the blinds. I may have had the smallest and rattiest apartment in the Shibuya ward, but I still had a decent view to see the slick black ships hovering over the city. My eyes soon shot down from the ships to notice that some buildings had massive, near perfectly round holes cut out of them, and suddenly another appeared. It was almost like watching a bomb explode in reverse. There would suddenly be a neon blue light in a perfectly spherical shape appearing in the side of a building. Then the glow would turn to flames and smoke and shrink in on itself. It would disappear along with the piece of the building it had
Damn, like some kind of sci-fi imploding bomb.
covered
I love it.
and finish its reversed eruption in a small shockwave of blue smoke. I watched, frozen in horror for a moment, but was pulled out of my paralysis when another pulse rang out as an explosion went off only a few buildings away. As much as I don't like admitting it, my first thought wasn't even to run. I wanted to jump back online and say a massive "we told you so" to every person that had ever said anything nice about the Cusidians. I might have even done it if the internet hadn't been down. The ships may have been black instead of the common white and light blue the Cusidians had landed on Earth in, but these were similar enough that I figured it had to be them. I heard people in my building and outside screaming and
Okay, I'll give you that.
running. I had no idea where we were supposed to go in a situation like this, but I just burst out of my room and headed for the elevators. I got to them as some other folks from my floor were getting in, but it was so stuffed with people I couldn't even tackle my way inside. I shoved and shoved, not worrying about who I was thrusting my elbows inside into. The door was trying to close, but couldn't with me there, until a hand popped out and smacked me in the face, making me stumble backwards. The doors closed, and the lift was gone. I unleashed a long string of curses at whoever that had
time to
been
die.
as I went for the stairs. I lived on the 10th floor,
okay.
and
Nope,
even
not
though
yet.
I was going down, I was exhausted by the time I got to the 4th. At a glance back then, you wouldn't have necessarily thought I was in bad shape, but that was mostly because I tended to wear pretty big and baggy clothes, so most people couldn't tell that I was somehow skinny and fat at the same time. Back
Sounds
in
like a
my dance
medical
class
problem.
days, I could have gone up and down those stairs at least twice over without breaking a sweat. But it had been a long time since I'd practiced my old favorite sport. By the time I made it out onto the streets, I was panting and my heart was pounding. Unfortunately, I wasn't done running yet. It seemed like most people were headed towards Yoyogi Park. I'd gone there once during an earthquake a few years back, so I guess it made as much sense as anything. The Cusidians
I
had
can see
long
that.
claimed to love nature, so maybe that meant they wouldn't attack there. Not that I trusted anything they'd ever said back then. I started following the crowd.
Wait, if they loved the nature so much, why would they attack farms then? I mean, I understand farms aren't pure nature, but still, animals and plants, that is nature. Even if it is domesticated and cultivated specifically for humanity.
Hearing more and more explosions going off above me, but eventually heard a voice, as clear could be, scream in my head. "Turn left, you whiny chucklehead!" I looked around, but it was clearly not anybody nearby.
Huh?
It hadn't even seemed to be spoken in a language I should have understood, and yet I did. To my left, there was an alleyway, but it was heading closer to where some of the ships were hovering above and dropping both bombs and some other kinds of pods. I wanted to keep following the crowd, but the voice had been so clear. I immediately started thinking I may have just fallen for some weird Cusidian mind game, but I did as the voice had said anyway. I sprinted through the alley and was about to run out onto the next street and turn towards Yoyogi again, when the voice said, By source, the dingus is actually listening for once. One more alley, keep on going. I felt a little like I was going
Wait,
insane,
what?
but there was enough insanity going on.
Hold on, the voice is talking to someone else? Okay, I like this.
Around me that I just leaned into it. I
You're
ran
gonna
into the
Max
next alley,
Steel
but
vibe.
just as I was reaching its end to come out onto another street, something leapt out in front of me. I fell back and tried to scramble away, but kept staring at the thing as it looked down at me. I would have thought it was a Cusidian in a crazy, futuristic mechanical suit, but the suit would have had to have been so skin-tight that the metal would have been as thin as paper. It was a humanoid with gray and blue bending metallic armor and a glass visor in place of its eyes.
Ooh.
The only distinct shape difference from it and a Cusidian was a tail and what sort of looked like a gun emerging from one of its wrists. It emotionlessly aimed its weapon towards me.
Oh crap.
Don't worry, this isn't what gets you, Groucho, that same voice said in my head. Just as a light was appearing on the end of the creature's gun, a set of 3 green glowing blades soared in front of it and sliced the weapon to pieces. Both I and the mechanical creature turned as a young woman in some sort of military power suit leapt towards us. Her knee smashed into the face of the creature, but it spun with the hit, twirling on its nimble legs and recovered a few feet away on the street. It crouched as if about to leap towards her, but before it could, she whipped her arm to the side, and those 3 green blades flew back across the street towards the creature again.
Incredible.
It saw it and leapt into the air, straightening its body like a pencil to spin between them, but one still managed to slice the end of its tail off, revealing wires and whirring machinery.
Aha.
The girl swung her hand towards it again, clearly
These aren't the Cusidians, but the robot in the Cusidian shape. Excluding a tail, of course.
controlling the blades as she looked back
No, wait, including a tail? One of those.
at me. Our eyes locked, and I felt a weird swell of emotions from fear to excitement to embarrassment to, admittedly, a bit of lust, too. She was really good looking. Go, get out of the city center as fast as you can, she yelled, turning back to the robotic creature. Her blades flew back to her and attached to a large gauntlet on one of her arms. They merged together and became one bigger blade. She charged towards the creature and ducked under it as it tried to swipe a claw at her. She thrust her weapon
Ah, that must be the person that's on the thumbnail for the second episode.
through its waist and cut it clean in half. I wanted to cheer for her or thank her or something, but she was quickly distracted by 2 more creatures like the first, leaping off the sides of buildings towards her. I got up, turned, and started to run back the way I'd come. There wasn't much I could have done in that moment, but I was mad at myself for not being brave enough to try and help that girl somehow. Of course, as I tended to do back then, I took that anger out on someone else. Hello, weird voice, are you gonna tell me what to do now or what? So snippy, but do whatever, it doesn't matter now, we're all set. I'll see you soon.
Uh-oh.
I had
Wait,
no
what do you
idea
mean?
what that meant, but before I could ask for clarification, I heard and felt a pulse go off above me. I looked up and saw the building right next to me had just been hit by one of those bombs.
Like, crap!
Desks, chairs, and debris started falling from inside the building. There was plenty falling in front of me and behind me. I stopped, unsure if I should turn back or go forward, but it didn't matter. There was no getting out of this. I just threw my arms over my head and closed my eyes. Something hit my shoulder and knocked me to my knees.
Oh.
It hurt like crazy, but soon after I felt a heavy thud against my head, and then nothing.
I'm dead. That's it. Just clunk, and I'm dead. Well, great. Oh, no, it is as a Cusarian, but it's only a Cusarian drone. And this looks like a playing card. Well, like something out of Yu-Gi-Oh! Pokemon. I'm liking it.
I wasn't in pain or afraid or anything like that. I felt as though I should be scared, as I seemed to be in
Ah, here we go. Chapter 2. My spirit guide is a jock.
some kind of empty
how bad of a
black
joke.
void, unable to move or see or even feel my body. But I was just kind of relaxed. Of course, soon after, that changed. It felt like my consciousness was yanked to the left at impossibly fast speeds. A tunnel of spinning nebula-like lights swirled around me for a minute, until I emerged into a clear white room, with smoke and clouds swirling around the space.
Huh.
I looked down and had my body again, though it didn't really seem like it was actually there.
Well, this is
I looked
good.
around and saw a white expanse going on for eternity. There may have been walls, but if there were, they blended in with everything else around me to a point where I couldn't tell.
So, is this
Finally,
the
a
afterlife?
figure appeared in the space ahead of me. They didn't give off any specific male or female vibes by the looks of them, and kind of appeared like a glowing genie. They had light skin, floating green hair, hands that were detached from their body, and hovering smoky hexagons making up a tail-like shape in place of legs. Look who's finally here to chat, and all it took was literally getting yourself killed to do it, the figure said, clearly being the voice I'd heard in my head.
Ah, it's you.
Killed? I'm dead? And what do you mean, got myself killed? You told me where to go. This is your fault. The being rolled their eyes and floated around me. Oh, calm down, scuttlebutt. I'm gonna send you back, but only after I finally give you a piece of my mind. Your heart, brain, and everything have been so closed off for so long, the only way I was gonna get to do my job was to make you have an NDE. You weren't supposed to have one of these in your life. I'm breaking the rules just to get you here. Oh,
NDE.
what? What do you mean your job? And you just killed me. I should be giving you a piece of my mind. By source, you're...
Oh, near-death experience. That's what an NDE is. Ha! Clever.
Your anger is so off track. The Incredible Hulk called and he said to take it down a notch. Here,
Whoa.
maybe this'll chill you out a bit. Suddenly, the figure stuck a hand right through my chest, pulled out a ball of light, and hurled it to the ground near me. It grew and transformed into... me. More accurately, it was me as a child, around 5 or 6,
Whoa,
wearing my
what
old
the-
dancing uniform. He was weeping and shaking. Please, stop. Why are you so mad all the time? I just want to be happy again. My anger at the floating figure
inner
vanished
child?
as I collapsed to my knees. Seeing the tears and expression of this child made me feel like I'd just been torturing him. I tried to imagine this all away, feeling that this was such a bizarre situation, it had to be something I was dreaming. But it was as real as anything I'd ever experienced.
I'm
I
loving
reached
it.
my hand towards him to put a palm on the younger me's shoulder, but he crunched into a ball and shuffled away. He then shifted back into a ball of light and flew into my chest again. Suddenly, I could feel him in there. It was a far too familiar feeling as well. It was like I'd always known he was in there and just never listened to him.
Yeah,
Like a terrified
you did
child
it.
had been screaming out for help for years and I'd constantly been ignoring him. A wave of sorrow washed over me as I looked up at the genie-like figure again. Who are you? And why am I here? The figure held out a hand to help me up, and I took it. The hand was the softest and gentlest thing I'd ever felt. It almost felt like peace and happiness was emanating off of it into me.
It's heaven.
Which was strange considering the fact that, given how they spoke, this being criticizing my anger seemed pretty ironic. We don't really have a lot of the construct that you have in the physical world, like names here. Even this body you're seeing me as isn't real. I kinda figured you'd see me as an old angel lady or something, but what do I care? A weird androgynous genie thing works too, I guess. Anyway, I suppose I go by the name Yorick. But really, for all I care, you can call me Zingzorp Grimbleshank as long as you finally listen to me. I'm your last spirit guide, so you better pay attention.
Last spirit guide? What? What do you mean last?
The word last almost physically hurt to hear for some reason, but I
I'm
ignored
loving
that as I
this.
said, spirit guide? For real, like that crazy Q Saviors guy talks about? Kind of, except that I know that nutbar's spirit guides, and they haven't been able to talk to him since he was 4 years old. He's doing about as good of a job at life as you are, but we're not here to talk about him.
That's something.
You, my little chickpea, are so profoundly off course from where you're supposed to be by now in your life that I literally had to break the rules of being a spirit guide to talk to you today, so I can try and get you back on course before next year. Before I could ask what
Next
that meant,
year?
Yorick put a hand on my chest and a finger between my eyebrows. A pulse shot out from both, and suddenly I felt happiness and warmth and love like never in my life. It was the most incredible feeling I could imagine. The closest thing I can relate it to is being wrapped in a heavy, warm blanket on a cold night with the smell of delicious food all around me and not having a concern in the world.
Oh,
Yorick's
it's a
hands
mother's
lowered,
embrace.
and the feeling disappeared. Wait, can I have that back? That was incredible. Yorick smirked. Pretty good, right? How about this one? Yorick repeated the same gesture, but this time the feeling was more like excitement. It felt like the excitement I used to get from the dance classes I took as a kid. The thrill of being challenged, but also seeing yourself improve at a skill you're really excited about being good at. It was the kind of feeling that made me want to jump back into the real world and live. It was something I
Huh.
hadn't felt in a long time. Yorick's hands lowered
I wonder
again,
what
and once
happened.
more the feeling was gone. Those two feelings are something you're supposed to have a lot more often, and two people in particular were going to help you feel them even more in the not too distant future. But if you don't shape up, those two are never going to decide to be a part of your life. Yorick was hovering back away from me, but I stepped closer.
Can you explain?
Now desperate to hear more. Who are these people, and how can they give me those feelings? Well, that's not exactly what... Alright, let's step back a bit. A series of floating images appeared around me, and they were all from different moments in my life, ones I remembered very vividly. Some
Ooh.
were happy, some scary, but sadness overtook me as I locked onto one in particular. My dad in the hospital bed, saying his final words to me when I was
Aw.
7. I heard him again as if I was back in that moment. You get to make your life beautiful, Kaio, no matter what anyone else tells you. Remember to make it beautiful, son.
That is a
Yorick
very...
continued.
Damn, that is like the perfect words you could actually say. Make your life beautiful. Oh, that is... Damn.
When your soul decided to incarnate as a human, you chose a few specific important events to happen that were meant to set you on the right track to live a good life. These were some of those. Anger
I'm
suddenly
sorry,
overtook
what?
my sadness. Are you saying I chose to have my dad die? Now I know you're full of it. I never would have done that. Very sarcastically, Yorick replied, Oh my gosh, you're right. I forgot that you're a genius who knows everything about living a good life, and that's why you're so happy all the time, right? Your soul and your dad's had a contract with each other. Him dying when you were young was part of both your plans, but his final words to you were supposed to inspire you to stick with training to be a professional dancer, no matter what anybody else said. I looked away.
Ooh.
That doesn't make
So he was meant to be a dancer, but then someone stopped him.
sense. I'd never realistically have been able to make a living as a dancer. Plus,
You could have.
dorky thing for a guy to do. Suddenly, all of the images vanished, and new ones appeared. They were of my mom, some teachers, Kintaro, Minoru, and random people I'd spoken to in my past or read things from online. They all bellowed in a cannon of sound, saying things exactly like what I'd just said about dancing. It was overwhelming, but stopped in an instant, as
That's why he sees himself not able to do it, because it's been beaten into him by everyone else around him.
Yorick waved them away. That opinion isn't yours, it's just one you let get wired into your brain by everyone else. Your dad's
Exactly,
last
yeah.
words were supposed to keep you on track, ignoring them, and by now you were supposed to look and feel like this. Next to Yorick, in another swell of light, appeared yet another version of me, but this time not a child. More like a smiling beefcake with incredible posture and, honestly, the nicest shoulders I've ever seen on a dude.
Shoulders?
He wore clothes that were similar
What?
to mine, but much tighter, revealing a lean, fit body. He looked like he had the ideal male dancer's physique. He walked towards me and I started feeling embarrassed, looking down at myself and seeing how far off I was from this guy. He got close and put a hand on my chest. In a voice like mine, but calmer and friendlier than I often was, he said, Don't worry, dude. You can get here, once you decide you have to. His
Yes.
body then suddenly merged with my own, and I got to both see what it looked like to be that version of me and feel the peace and excitement he had for life. It wasn't as dramatic as what Yorick had let me feel earlier,
This is
but
good.
it was so
This is
much
very
better
good.
than how I felt in my daily life. I grabbed my new jacked shoulders and rubbed them, muttering, My god, it's like I have bowling balls on either side of my neck. Yorick's eyes rolled.
I'm sorry. I need a moment. Okay, I had my laughing fit. I'm good.
Of course, that's what you noticed most. The transformed me faded, and I turned back into who I was then. I looked again at Yorick. Okay, what do I have to do? How do I become him as fast as possible? Well, I can't actually tell you that directly. You have to learn it yourself, but you are gonna have to figure it out fast. There's a ticking clock on you until your next soul contracted life moment. I'm going to send you back down to your body, and exactly 333 days after that, within 1 hour of each other, you are going to shake hands with two people. One will be the love of your life, and the other will be your greatest rival. The first feeling I let you have, the warm little fuzzies like smelling fresh souffle cheesecake while being hugged by a friendly bear, that was the love you're going to feel from your relationship with the love of your life.
Yes!
The second, the excitement of improving, that is what you're going to get from having a rival that pushes you to be your best self.
Yes!
Unprompted by some action from Yorick, a swell of excitement burst through me at that moment. I was actually going to be able to feel those incredible feelings back in real life, and I actually had a love of my life waiting for me. Of course, my excitement turned to concern as Yorick went on. The problem is both of these people are only going to take you seriously as a part of their lives if you're the person you were supposed to be by now. Not this angry comment section rage troll who hates life and everyone in it.
Ooh.
If you meet them with this whiny, warped personality, they'll pass you right by without a second thought. You've got less than a year to shape up your mind and body. It's possible, but you're gonna have to get down to work, bang bang pow, right now, chucklehead.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, I can't tell you what to do. I've already interfered way more than I was supposed to without you learning how to get in touch with me on your own. But what I can tell you is the first thing you have to do when you get back is quit your job so that you have time to become the cool, kind, happy, boulder shoulder version of Kaio you need to be.
Boulder shoulder.
I can't do that. I can barely afford my apartment as it is. If I quit now, I'd be out of money in 2, maybe 3 months. Don't you think I know that? You're about as good at holding on to money as a shopaholic gambler with holes in his pockets.
Damn,
Looking for you,
that's a
now
good
that
one.
you know I'm watching, you can also know that I'm helping you out. Trust me, it's more than I'm supposed to do, but I'm gonna cover your money problems for a while. Just keep looking for signs and numbers, okay? That's how spirit guides talk to you physical reality folks.
Oh, thank you.
I started feeling like I was being pulled away.
Numbers?
I tried walking closer to Yorick. What kinds of signs? What do you mean by numbers? Yorick suddenly seemed shocked and looked up above them. Oh my, what is this? Yorick snatched their hand up and grabbed something out of the air. Would you look at this? It's another thing I can't tell you. Figure it out. I can't do...
I'm sorry, I absolutely love Yorick. This is absolutely so good. I can't stop laughing.
Do all the legwork. I don't even have legs the way you see me. But remember, I'm there to help. Now go live that beautiful life, chucklehead. Before I could ask for more information, my body was yanked back out of the white space.
Oh,
The last
here we
thing
go.
I thought I heard Yorick say seemed too silly to be real, but it sounded like, "And eat some bread and butter pickles with cheddar cheese for me. It's one of the best parts of physical reality on Earth." I was pulled back through the nebulous tunnel
okay.
into blackness once more. The next thing I knew, I was throwing my head forward, sitting upright in a hospital bed. I had a few bandages over my arms and legs, and my head was throbbing. I put my hand to it and instantly agitated
That's
what
kinda
felt like
hot.
a bruise under some more bandages. It was dark in the room, but I could see my mom, slumped over asleep in a chair near me with tear-stained cheeks. I wasn't sure if I should let her sleep or wake her up and tell her I was okay. A clock next to me on a small, cheap desk read 1:11 a.m. Only a small
Ooh,
trail of
that's
light
early.
was pouring in from the crack in the door, but the hospital sounded like it was bustling with busy people. I remembered the attack that had gotten me there and knew it must have killed and hurt a lot of other people too. But that didn't matter to me nearly as much as the conversation I'd just had. Everything about my time
at
with
least you
Yorick
weren't
stuck
dead.
with me. The idea of quitting my job and knowing I had less than a year to completely transform my life, especially in the midst of what may be a war with an alien race, was all terrifying. But I did at least have an overwhelming sense of determination to go for it anyway.
Do
I
it.
instinctively
Do
put
it.
my hand to my heart and whispered, "All right, Dad. I know I'm starting late, but I'm gonna get that beautiful life. I promise."
Oh, I'm loving this series, and thank you so very much for suggesting this. 'Cause, damn, I should have started this before. I was just thrown by the name. I'm loving
I hope you
it.
enjoyed the first official episode of Starseed Psyche. I had made a pilot episode of this about a year ago, and I liked all of the concepts in that pilot, and I'm adapting them into this series, but I almost don't recommend going back to that if you haven't seen it, because the events of that are kind of like the first 3 chapters of what this series is going to be, with some things that I've added now for the new version. So you'd kind of be getting spoilers for the next few chapters if you go watch that pilot, but, you know, do what you want. There are going to be some changes too. Alternatively, you can watch something like Vigilance, which is one of my series that I recently finished, or Mytholethal, which is still running and is a little bit more action, comedy,
No, I
mythology
finished that one.
focused. Or if you want to get really deep into my work, you could start at Multiverse Tales Explained, and then watch the Multiverse Tales playlist from there, to have many, many hours of stories to watch. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note.
What you
The
got?
thought I want to leave people with today is the idea that if you've been unhappy for a while, you don't have to wait for some big, tragic event to happen to start making changes. I know when I personally started going on my mental health transformation around 4 years ago that has completely altered my life for way better, I started into it because some very unpleasant things were happening in my personal life.
Oh, I'm sorry
and
to
that
hear
kind of
that.
pushed me to a point where I knew I needed to change something. And Kaio in this story needed to literally die and get paraded by his spirit guide to decide to make his changes, but you don't need to wait for something big like that. You can decide to start making changes in your life right now.
Oh yeah.
I hope that's inspiring.
All it
I
takes
love
is
you all,
a
and I'll see you
step.
all in the next episode on Friday. Beast Summoner Part 8 is coming for you. I'll see you there.
Alright everyone, well that's going to be the end of today's episode, and I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all of y'all next time when we flick back on. Until then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.